Welcome to the deep dive. So, today we're looking at some really quite extraordinary source material. It's basically the raw, unfiltered thoughts of, well, one of the biggest, most talked about names in music for, the last 20 years, Scott Studer Braun.
Yeah, and what's really striking is just how candid it is, We're going way past the usual headlines here. It's almost like a masterclass in the psychology of, well, hyperambition, extreme success. So our mission really is to give you a kind of shortcut, to get inside the head of someone who built this hugely disruptive career.
Yeah.
We're pulling out the key stuff, where that drive comes from, the massive cost of it all, and what he learned when things kind of fell apart.
Okay, let's unpack this then, because the first thing, like you said, that really jumps out is this whole construction of his identity. We all know Scooter, right? But he actually says he created that name, that persona.
Yeah, deliberately.
Because he didn't think Scott, his real name, could actually achieve what he wanted.
It's fascinating, isn't it? He saw Scooter as this necessary mask, the sort of operational identity that had to be tough enough, relentless, completely uncompromising.
Right.
Looking back, yeah, Scooter was the engine. But, and this is key, he realized later that engine was running on some pretty deep-seated fears.
Yeah.
Not just, ambition for its own sake.
And the sources go into that, these two main drivers, almost opposites in a way. First one is just pure insecurity, like this fear he wouldn't be enough. And this constant worry, he says, that everyone will see that I shouldn't be here. Classic imposter syndrome, but maybe amplified.
Massively amplified.
Yeah.
But then there's the second driver, which is, well, it's really complex. It's this mix of family history, legacy, and what he saw as privilege.
Yeah, the background with his father being a Hungarian refugee, grandparents surviving the Holocaust, that's heavy.
Incredibly heavy.
Yeah.
And it created this enormous weight. He actually felt ashamed almost of the comfortable life he was born into as a first-gen American.
Ashamed. Wow.
Yeah, like he hadn't earned it. So he felt he had to prove he was more than the privilege, that he deserved it somehow.
So the drive wasn't just, I want to be successful. It was more like, I have to be successful to justify my existence, given what my family went through.
Exactly. His dad apparently told him every night he had to hold himself to a higher standard. So if you connect those dots, it really suggests that sometimes, maybe often, that kind of intense professional drive, that greatness, it's fueled by trying to quiet that internal noise.
The lies you tell yourself.
Yeah, the lies saying you're not worthy, not just a healthy ambition. That insecurity basically became his rocket fuel for decades.
And you definitely see that fuel burning in his early days, that chaotic start in Atlanta, selling fake IDs, then pivoting really fast into party promotion.
Right, pure hustle.
Yeah.
But he also puts a lot down to just being in the right place at the right time. He had this knack, apparently, for bridging different social scenes that were pretty segregated back then.
He mentions the actor Jason Weaver being key there.
Yeah, introducing him to the Atlanta club scene. And then another promoter, Alex Gidwan, taught him the nuts and bolts where the real value was. At the door, at the bar.
The fundamental.
The fundamentals. But the thing he keeps coming back to, for his really big, audacious early moves.
Like getting Bieber and his mom on a plane when they had no money, never flown.
Exactly that. Or finding Asher Roth on MySpace. He says the key ingredient was just ignorance.
Ignorance, how so?
Basically, the power of not knowing what you're not supposed to be able to do. He calls it a lack of limiting beliefs. It was, 24, 25?
Yeah.
He just didn't have the baggage or the rules in his head that would tell an older exec that's impossible.
So he just went for it.
He just went for it.
All right.
Which ties straight into this other really critical moment he talks about, the dream buster.
Yeah, the dean at Emory University.
Right. Puts him on academic probation. Tells him his chances of making it big without a degree are like 1 in a billion. He even names the Coca-Cola founder as the exception.
And instead of crushing him,
It was like lighting a match to gasoline. He dropped out, like immediately, went all in. And what's really interesting is how he reflects on it now. He actually appreciates those dream busters.
appreciates them.
Yeah, because they gave him that resistance, that pressure he felt he needed.
He even spins it into a kind of philosophy, doesn't he? Saying you can use that negativity, the doubt, the hate, as fuel.
You can.
Yeah.
But he says you have to recognize it's coming from your shadow self. And crucially, it can't be the only thing driving the car.
Okay, that's a really important distinction.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Because that negative fuel, yeah, it gets you moving fast, gets you off the line. But as the rest of his story shows, if that's all you're running on, it's just not sustainable. You eventually burn out. or worse.
And that's exactly what happened, right? This relentless career built on the scooter mask, fueled by insecurity and maybe some negativity, it eventually led to a serious crash around age 40.
Yeah, despite everything looking amazing on the outside, crushing it, as he says. But inside, a really dark place.
He talks about a specific moment, a suicidal thought that lasted about 20 minutes. That's terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. And it led to a complete breakdown. The pressure of being Scooter finally just, well, it broke Scott.
And the big realization that started his recovery, it wasn't about business strategy, was it?
Not at all. It was deeply personal. He said he realized he'd spent so much time trying to impress people who didn't love me instead of realizing how many people already did.
Just performing for the wrong crowd, essentially.
Wow. And that led him to completely rethink his famous baseball analogy, too.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. He used to say successful people just stay at the plate, ignore the booing crowd.
Right. Ignore the haters, the critics.
But after the breakdown, he had this profound shift. He realized who that booing crowd really is.
Not the external critics.
No. He realized the millions of people screaming at you, telling you you're not good enough, telling you to quit.
Yeah.
They are you. It's the internal noise, that relentless judge inside your own head that even the most successful people carry around. So the goal isn't blocking out the world.
It's silencing that inner critic.
Yeah.
Finding peace inside.
Which meant the solution wasn't, another big deal or signing another artist.
Nope. It was deep internal work. He talks about intense therapy, something called the Hoffman process, around age 40, helping him basically shed the Scooter persona and find Scott again, realizing he needed that dopamine hit from an introspective voice, not just from constant external wins.
And doing that work, that must have brought up a lot about his past actions, his career.
Oh, definitely. He talks specifically about a major source of guilt relating to the young artists he managed. The ones he shot to global fame.
That was Justin Bieber, yeah. What was the guilt about?
It was about guiding them through that insane level of fame while he himself was still operating from his own unexamined issues, his own insecurity and trauma. He feels he didn't really understand the pain or the background they were bringing into that situation because he hadn't dealt with his own stuff.
That makes sense. It's hard to guide someone through a storm if you're lost in one yourself.
Precisely. And he has this really sobering take on fame, especially for young people. He says flat out, human beings are not made to be worshipped. All that chanting, the constant judgment from the entire world at that age, it's incredibly confusing. It messes with your head, your sense of reality.
And he also noticed a common thread in his most successful artists, didn't he? Something that allowed them to connect globally.
Pain. Yes, it was pain. To really convey emotion that resonates everywhere, artists need to understand deep emotion, both the joy and the suffering.
But that suffering needs to be managed, presumably.
Yes, exactly. And that leads to what he calls his biggest professional regret. He says he wishes he'd had a therapist on the road for all of them. Full stop.
Wow.
Yeah. He wishes he'd just slowed everything down. Forced everyone, including himself probably, to find that internal anchor, that internal validation, instead of just chasing the next hit record, the next billion streams.
That shift in perspective, focusing inward, it seems like that directly led to the biggest change in his career path.
Quitting music management after 23 years.
Yeah. And not because things were going badly, financially anyway.
No, it was because, as he put it, he was too afraid to find out who I was without it. The job, the Scooter identity, had completely merged with his sense of self.
So stepping away was the only way to really commit to finding Scott.
He felt so, yeah. He even said he had to announce it publicly to hold himself accountable, to make it a clean break, protect the self-work he was doing.
And looking back, he also talks quite openly about that period of really intense public criticism. The Taylor Swift situation gets mentioned.
Right. And his framing of that now is really interesting. He doesn't call it a disaster. He calls it a gift of pain, a gift of awareness.
A gift.
Because it forced him to realize something crucial. Neither the huge praise he got for years nor the intense hate he got during that period was actually deserved because, as he says, none of these people knew me. They knew the persona, the headlines, but not the person.
That must be quite liberating in a strange way, to realize external opinion is just noise.
Exactly. It helped him anchor himself internally. And it also helped him really absorb some wisdom from Berry Gordy, the Motown founder.
What was that?
Gordy told him, "It will never end the way you want it to, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen."
Accepting things don't always wrap up neatly.
Yeah. Accepting you can't control the ending, you can't control the narrative perfectly, But that doesn't erase the journey, the work. It frees you from needing that perfect final scene.
And all of this seems to have coalesced into a new philosophy for him now.
Definitely. He talks about a couple of core ideas. One is amor fati,
Loving your fate.
loving it all, yeah. The good, the bad, the sorrow, the joy, embracing the whole package.
And the other big idea.
It's what he calls the custodian mindset, drawing from Kabbalah, apparently. The idea that wealth, success, talent, it's not really ours. We're just temporary custodians. We're meant to manage it well and share it.
So moving away from ownership and control.
Exactly. He sees life now, his work, not as a battle to win, but as an incredible game to just participate in, surrendering the need to dictate the outcome.
Which means he's shifted from operating out of that competitive mind, which is all about winning finite goals.
Right. To operating from the curious and creative mind, which doesn't really have an end goal. It just keeps building, exploring, contributing.
So looking back at this whole arc, the relentless young guy, driven by the mask, the insecurity, to this much more reflective person focused on internal work, it's quite a transformation.
It really is. He describes it as going from being asleep at the wheel, thinking he was happy because the world said he was successful, to being awake. Awake in a reality that's maybe harder, messier, but ultimately more real, more aligned.
So what does this all mean for you, listening? I mean, the big takeaway seems to be that even for people who achieve literally everything on the outside,
Yeah, eventually the anchor has to be internal. It has to be in that self-work, in the harmony of your relationships, not just in stacking up more external achievements.
and there's that final, really provocative idea that came up in the discussion, the difference between balance and harmony.
Right, we talk a lot about work-life balance, right? Which kind of implies they're competing forces you have to juggle.
Like weighing scales.
Exactly. But the sources here suggest maybe the goal isn't balance, it's harmony. Harmony means integrating those parts of your life, bringing your partner, your family into the process, into the fears, into the building. Not just saying, I'm doing this for you as a justification for being absent or isolated.
So true integration rather than separation.
Yeah. And the implication is pretty profound. Maybe the highest form of success isn't measured by the empire you build outside, but by the integrity, the wholeness, the vulnerability of the self you cultivate inside. That shift from competitor to, well, custodian.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the real win.